to go ahead and get started. I think we'll still probably have a few people filtering in, but we want to welcome you to this week's CybHER Conversation. My name is Katie Shuck, and I am the CybHER Chief of Strategy here at Dakota State University. I have with me Kanthi Narukonda, who is the CybHER Chief of Operations, and we have Dr. Pam Rowland, one of CybHER's co-founders, who founded CybHER 8 years ago. Now, I have to change that. I've been saying 7 for so long. But we are so excited to have you here. CybHER is an organization out of Dakota State University in Madison, South Dakota, where we work to inspire, empower, motivate, and educate girls in cybersecurity. So you can always go to our website to find out more at cybher.org. Before we get started and I introduce our speaker, I do want to remind you that you can ask questions at any point during the conversation through the Q&A that you will find at the bottom of your screen. And Kanthi will be facilitating the Q&A here later on. But without further ado, I do want to introduce Marcaé Bryant-Omosor, who is a software engineer and the CEO and founder of CyberBytzs LeadExecs. So she is a remarkable woman who I have heard so many amazing things from and came highly recommended to us as a speaker and professional and just cyber warrior. So without further ado, I am going to hand the floor over to you, Marcaé.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for giving me a chance to an opportunity to be here and speak among you for the CybHER Conversation for 2021. So, do I go into a conversation about myself, or do I ask questions?
No, go ahead and just start. You can tell us everything. Yeah.
Okay, basically a little bit about myself is I'm a U.S. Veteran. I spent 10 years in the military, and then I started my life in Florida and traveled around. And when I left the military, I spent my career in IT for over 20 years. Worked in the IT side, the operations side, and then I landed myself in this software engineering side. That was really exciting to see a different side of IT. And then I started gravitating more to the information security space and the cybersecurity space. So that's when I worked my education level, paralleled it with a BS in computer science, a master's in cybersecurity, and then I'm working on my PhD in cyber operations. So my hope is to complete my PhD in cybersecurity, be a strong warrior in cybersecurity, both on the cities, state, and also the national levels. Now, in my spare time, I've started and founded CyberBytzs LeadExecs. And basically, this company is starting from my challenges that I had pivoting throughout my career, is that women like myself in minorities trying to navigate that management space, you don't have the professional development skills needed to be able to move up the management pipeline. And so I wanted to build equity and diversity within that space to make sure that we equipped our leaders with these skills early on in their career so that they can take it with them throughout that career pipeline. And they can take those spaces and we can see more women in the boardroom. We can see more minorities at the table, and just kind of diversity is very important because those missing perspectives are very important to even out and be able to add competitive value for the organization. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you.
Oh, I see we already have a question. So thank you for being on the CybHER Conversations. And our first question to you is, what's the biggest takeaway that you've learned throughout the challenges that you've encountered in your career?
I'd say the biggest takeaway that I have is really take your time, learn your craft. As I said, you need to be good at what you're doing in order to elevate yourself to the next level. So that's very important. Whatever level you're in, get to know the space, get to know your department, get to know interdepartmental people between other departments, and then build that network. Because if you build that network, that helps you move and rise above among yourself to be able to move into those positions. Because you got to be able to find those people that are mentors and secure mentors that'll help you along your path. And then you need to find the sponsors, and the sponsors will be able to elevate you because they've been there. Those sponsors will be able to reach back and help pull you up and help guide you. And then you need champions. And champions are those that will advocate for you when you're not in the room. And we need more people like that along the way to help you move through that space. So to me, that's a very important network. It's very important to learn your craft, and you need to make sure that you're very good at what you do.
I like it. Network and learn your craft. You wouldn't think that they are, I mean, they're so, I don't want to, I can't find the word. You know that they are the answer, but they're so, frequently we hear them so much, we just don't think of them as the correct way to get to where you want to be, to network and then to learn your craft. That's awesome. What branch of the military did you serve in?
I served 10 years in the United States Air Force. Military intelligence is where I started, which to me is kind of like cybersecurity intel for the government. And then so I was kind of that interface between the two. And so when I got out of the military, it just kind of helped me go, I like the intel, but that's not exactly what I want to do. I want to do computers. I got to find some way to merge the two. And that's how I figured out cybersecurity. So that was before cybersecurity was even a term. So I'm predating myself, but oh well.
So how is it, I mean, you just answered, but how did you get interested in the intelligence field, like at all? Even before you got into cybersecurity, you were in the intelligence field. So how did you get interested in that?
Excellent question. Really, I didn't know what Intel was. So that wasn't a thing that I decided upon myself that I wanted to do. I just knew that when I was in high school, I was partnered in a program called Youth Engineering Society, and we met on Saturdays. Every Saturday, we went over all these high-level math concepts. We learned all these science Olympiad and prepared for the bridge building contest, all of those things. And then also we did the computers. And so for me, I didn't have a computer at home. So that was really, something. And so for me, that was very important that I got to take the computer apart and put it together and be able to really, get my hands dirty with that. And so being that I was in that program, I was good at all three. So I was exceptional at all three. What do I do? So when it came time for me to graduate, it was like, where am I going to take this? Well, we didn't have enough money because my mother was a school teacher. We didn't have enough money for college. I was the first, grandchild, first student going up for, college, didn't know how to navigate that effectively, even though I was a very good performer in school. I didn't know how to navigate that. And since I didn't, then it was like, okay, what do I do? How do I get through this? Of course, military was like, hey, this is a thing. Army people, Air Force people were coming by my house, having dinner with us, inviting us to come and take the test and really get to know them. And so after we did that, it was like, oh man, I guess Air Force is the way. So I chose the Air Force. And when I went through basic, it was one of those things that you fill out your dream sheet. And Intel was on one of those, but since I was performing high on everything, and I was really smart, as they say, then, they always want Intel. They want Intel people in the, they recruit that for the Air Force. So that's kind of how I got it. Started in Intel, didn't know what it was. It was operations Intel. It was targeting Intel, where we picked targets and we had to learn how to breathe and really talk. And so I got my customer service and my, public speaking out of the way. I can talk to generals. So I learned a lot of skills, but it was just not satisfying to me. And that's what made me want to transition to following my dreams. And so I was at Eglin Air Force Base, and I had a captain that came in, and he was a computer engineer. And that was the first time that I laid eyes on a computer engineer, and he had a degree in computer science. And he did one thing that I always hate, is telling me I can't do something. He was like, you can't go to school full time while you're in the Air Force and go for computer science. I said, watch me. And that's how I got in there.
Oh, that is awesome. I love when people just, you prove them wrong by doing exactly what you want to do. You put everything you have into it, and whoa, wow, that is amazing. In your bio, we see that you're the CEO and the founder of CyberBytzs LeadExecs nonprofit. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Like how you came about founding this nonprofit and what it is you do exactly with the nonprofit?
Oh, thank you for asking about CyberBytz LeadExec. Basically, it came and birthed and grew over time out of COVID. I got to speak with doctors Ashley Podorowski and Dr. Pam Rowland. I had a conversation with them. They really kind of talked to me about CybHER and how they founded it. And I was inspired by it, but I wanted to do my thing. And so I really, thought, put that through my head, rolled it around, really, thought about how I wanted this thing to work here. And so what I realized is that I had a chance to speak at the Grace Hopper in October. And I put in a presentation on diversity and inclusion that was advancing women leaders. And for me, I find that that's very important to me, and that's where I found my passion. So when you find your passion, then you can build on it. So then it was like, okay, how do I set this up? And so basically, I went through the process of setting up the nonprofit, trying to get the infrastructure. And how CyberBytz came about is basically we are providing services to women and minorities to help them fill that leadership skills development gap that they have to be able to go from current position to the boardroom. So we want to get them to the boardroom and beyond. And so how do you do that? Well, I'm serving on some nonprofit boards. I'm getting in that space. I'm understanding that headspace. And so we're designing the program to develop some of those key concepts and key pillars to help provide them with the knowledge that they need to be able to perform in that capacity. And then also to educate them, because a lot of them don't know they can do it. And so that was one of my big things is when I was growing up and I had my children and I was close in the military, I didn't understand, and I traveled around so much different, living from place to place. I didn't really have my own city. And so I didn't understand the idea of serving in the government, like serving in the city in a nonprofit status or in a volunteer status capacity. So volunteer engagement. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand how that worked with me and my full-time job and my children. And so if we can kind of educate people on that process and what's needed and how they can do it, I think you'll get more people to fill those roles and fill those gaps. because a lot of times knowledge is power.
That is awesome. There is such a need for more and more diversity in the boardroom. And we're seeing that very, very clearly now. I think it has always been clear, but it was just not as talked about as it is now. And that is amazing work you're doing with CyberBytzs LeadExecs. So you have held multiple titles. You are a software engineer. You worked with intelligence. You work as an adjunct professor. And you are the CEO and the founder of a nonprofit. So of all these roles, do you have a favorite? Like, do you think, you know what, this is my favorite role ever? Is there one such role or job that you think?
Thank you, Kanti, for asking me that. And I would have to go back to my conversation I had recently about favorites. I talked to my 3 children. I have a daughter and 2 sons, and they're always asking me, well, mainly my daughter, which one is my favorite? And so I have to give her this conversation about I have no favorites. I love all of you guys equally. And I parallel that to say in my job, I love all my jobs and all my capacities. I like education, and education is embedded within me because my mom was an educator. She was a teacher for 23 years. She was an administrator and principal, at least 7 of those years. And she even worked with disadvantaged, challenged children. And so she brought that home. And then I was helping her grade papers for years. So I felt like I was a teacher too. So I was indoctrinated. And so I told her, I said, I just don't want to teach at the K through 12 system. I love them dearly. And I tutored people of all ages. But I was like, I want the college level. And that's how I started with college, because I want the challenge of your mind, the challenges of the concepts and the principles that we deal with in college, the world problems that we deal with. Although now I understand that you can actually take it even to high school, but at the time that I made that decision, I thought it was only college. And so that's what stemmed and put me in the path of wanting to get associated with a college and then research opportunities, because I do believe in working in that, being grounded in research and helping the community. And so that is just a piece of me. I like to be in the real world, IT world, cyber world. I like to be where things are happening. So I like that day-to-day, we call it day-to-day drone tactics of what's happening from the military. So I really do like that. And the military made me, because that's where I got my foundation. So I can't, be upset about my foundation and how because your foundation is, you're only as strong as your foundation. So I have to like that. And so that's why I say I like all the roles that I've been in, from engineer to IT leader to, nonprofit leader. And I love starting my nonprofit. This is so exciting to me to do something new, something that hasn't been done before. And for at least for me anyway, and really make a difference in society. And I feel like that is what I'm doing with the nonprofit.
So what does your typical day look like then?
A typical day for me is I still work full time as a software engineer. And so for me, I basically spend about an hour and a half of my day getting ready for my group work. And we're different because we actually work in what we call extreme pair programming. And that means we program together. We don't do any single coding like by yourself. We code together with another developer. And so basically we work together now in a virtual space, and we go in our own little Zoom room and we program back and forth and get our work done. And so we have core hours for programming. And so those hours happen to be 9 to now. I was out this month. And so somehow they extended it to 5 now. So 9 to 5. And then after that, it's time to work on my business, or I have board meetings that I may have to be a part of because I'm on the board. And so basically I schedule time for the nonprofit, time for the board, and then I obviously schedule time for fun because I'm married. And I have to put that time in there for my husband and the family and the children. So I have times that I call my family and they have to be ready, because I'm available. They love it. I'm like, this is my time for you. But yes, I'm meticulous at times, planning my time out. So that's what's important to me. And then that helps me move. And if something doesn't get done, I'm not upset. I just move it to the next day or the next time that I need it done. But for me, that's always making something happen. And I have building out CyberBytz LeadExecs from January 2021 to June 2021. And so we should have our first beta class in May of 2021. So that's the goal.
Awesome. We hope you do get your amazing beta class this May. That sounds very exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So, what do you draw inspiration from?
I guess mostly from relationships. My mother is part of my motivation. My father is also my motivation. So I guess you would wrap it up to say family. Family, we're really a close-knit family, so all of them each give me something. So when I call them, that's where we build up that motivation to continue. They build me up. They're my cheerleaders, whatever it is I need at that time. They're the ones to bounce ideas off of. So my inspiration would be my family. Motivation also would probably come from my existing experiences, because I've walked this walk. I've been through many career pivots where, it didn't line me up exactly where I thought it should line me up. I didn't even know I could ask for certain things. So there's just knowledge, not having the knowledge and understanding of what I can now negotiation, leaving money on the table, things like that. We want to make sure that our leaders are empowered to not leave money on the table. We need to educate them in that whole process. And for me, just empower and then my prospective clients are going to be my motivation to be able to help them.
So with playing multiple roles, there come many accomplishments, but there are also many challenges. So what would you say your biggest accomplishment has been so far?
I'd say my biggest accomplishment is probably landing this role as a software engineering that opened a door to allow me to open my first nonprofit. That's my biggest accomplishment. Apart from my children's births and being married to my husband. Got to put that out there. But yes.
What is the biggest challenge that you've faced so far?
The funny thing is, with challenges, I don't really think of them as what we call at work impediments. Impediments are, you can't do anything. You can't. I always feel that there's some way to get this done no matter what, even if it takes me a few more days. And so I have a positive outlook on it. And so I will not look at it as I can't do it. And so I guess the challenge would be for me, the hardest thing at the moment right now, or the hardest decision I made, is probably my PhD program. So changing the focus of my PhD program to align with my goals. And each time I make an educational goal, I grow. And so I felt like just because my master's was in cyber, I didn't really know where my PhD needed to be, but I just assumed it needed to be in cyber operations. But then I've not ever worked in the cyber operations center, so it was like challenging for me. But my passion is pulling me to leadership. And so I'm moving my PhD to cybersecurity leadership, because that will align me with both my goals, where I want to go in my career and where I want my nonprofit to go. It'll give me the skills and accolades to go there with that. So to me, I think that was my biggest challenge, is to make that decision mid-flight and then say, there's another thing I should do.
So is there a big difference then between working in the military and working outside of the military?
I wouldn't really call it different. Maybe because the military, we become a team, a unit. We're very, very close in the military. And I think because we go in and understand our mission and our vision for being in the military, that we just gravitate to that feeling. Whereas when you're in the other side, you can take it or leave it. You don't have to be close with your teammates. You know, you can work with them every day, but you don't have to have that close-knit relationship. So I think that's just a choice that people can have. So I think, to me, that's the biggest thing, because I still saw it as get up and work every day, you know, get up, go to work, come home, have a family, have fun on the weekend, do what you have to do. There are times that we're on op tempo, where we have to run through exercises and be ready to mobilize at a drop of a dime, but those were exercises and they come with the territory. But in the IT world, in our cyber world, we have what we call overtime, and we're trying to get out a project, and we have to run through and make sure all the defects, there are none, and everything's fixed, and all the security is patched before we release the software. And we might have to run through a big, overtime thing. So it's the same to me in my mindset. So someone else may have a different viewpoint, but to me, I don't ever really look at it as different. Just a different job.
We are almost out of questions, or not questions, out of time for the questions. So I will wrap up the Q&A with one last one. What advice do you have for all the people that are watching this session right now?
Excellent question. Advice I would have for you is to really do your homework. That's something that I learned very, very early. So if you're thinking of the career of cybersecurity, which I think you would be, you would look at cyberseek.org is a website. And basically you can start to figure out like what interests you and where you want to be, because that's your first step to landing that first job if you're graduating from college, because that's the biggest thing, is how do you figure out how to get that job. I would also look at internships and opportunities, because those are very important key skills that can help you land a job. It gives you real world experience that you can draw from, and also gives you the aptitude to be able to talk on some of those interviews that you need to go through. And then I would also kind of work on just mapping out where you think you want to be, like your goals, because goal setting is important, because if you write out your goals, then you can accomplish them. If you don't write them out, then they may not get done because we didn't write it down. So we should write them down, and that's for accountability, that I want it done in this month. And then now you have accountability. And so those are things that could really help you decide where you want to go in cyber, because it's a huge field, and you don't want to be stuck over there in risk management when you want to be in the cyber operations center. So you need to learn the lingo, learn the language, and understand what goes in each of those jobs so that you can prepare yourself better for getting the job. And that will help you have more satisfaction when you receive the job. And then from there, you can chart your path to be able to move up through your promotions. So that's important. And lastly, networking. No one gets anywhere by themselves. It always takes someone else, whether it's a mentor, a sponsor, a champion, to help move them through or let them know of opportunities that's out there. So if you talk to people and tell people where you want to go, people can help you and they can advocate for you. If you don't talk to people, then it's all in your head, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it only goes where you take it. Now, if you have a team of 50 people out there help move you forward, do you think you're going to get a lot further if 50 people are advocating for you, or if one person is advocating for you? Just a question. So thank you so much for being here today with me and letting me have the chance to mentor to you.
We are so appreciative of that. And you had so many amazing insights, I think, for everybody who's watching this, whether they're watching live or the recorded version of this on our YouTube channel. I specifically loved when you talked about scheduling too. And before I tell you why, I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll in here for everyone to complete, just to let us know a little bit more about who's watching the program. But I had a mentor of mine who once told me that there are only 168 hours in a week, and how you fill them shows your priorities. So I love that you schedule everything, because you only have 168. You can't add more or take any away. So make the best use of it. But just a reminder to everybody watching, you can always go to our website to find out more about CybHER programs at cyber.org. Also find the upcoming conversations. You may notice we don't have any February ones listed in there, and we will be posting that. We are just making some changes to the way that we schedule and had to wait until the end of this conversation in order to make those changes. So you shouldn't see any difference on your end, but tomorrow we'll be scheduling all of those. But so we do have Agnes Marici joining us next Wednesday. She is from Italy and works with the Italian government, has also worked with the United Nations and NATO in cybersecurity. She calls herself a cyber enthusiast and works for cyber equality, helping to work in critical infrastructure and data governance. So we're so excited to have her with us next week, and we can't wait to show you who else is on our February lineup. So we look forward to it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Marcaé, for all of your insights and your wisdom that you have. And please follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you and have a good night.